focus on more of the decorative elements of using the router, for molding details and for, various inlay applications and all kinds of stuff. But you see how much we do with the router. We mill our working faces, and in some instances, on those huge English oak boards, we mill the whole surface with a router. That's just on that big sled outside. So we use this for we do that. Everything. So every piece of furniture you see, in Jeff's house, our router is a big part of that. So now I'm going to focus on our molding detail and all this kind of stuff. But first, notice my table here. I've got all this stuff out here because I have a lot of stuff I want to show you. But the idea here is to have a good, clear space to work, well lit. And if you think about the amount of time you have in this tabletop now, it's significant. It's taking you a lot. So you don't want to be hurrying along here and having a pile of junk on your tabletop and trying to work around that. You guys have plenty of time to do whatever you want to do, as long as you focus and you get down to it. But there's no reason to be working in messy conditions when you're at this stage of the game, because it's important. Rob, while you're talking there, I'm going to go around and I'm going to give a mat to everybody while you're doing that. All right. Well, Jeff mentioned the mat as well, and that is another thing that I have laid down here. I have this yoga mat here. So this is just a yoga mat bought at Kmart. Another good thing is if you look up there on the shelf, see that green stuff there, the carpet underlayment? That's good. You can find that for free on the side of the road all the time, but you just want to do a little check when you pick it up and just give it a sniff. It smells of cat urine. It's not worth even free. So look at that. So this is just a yoga mat. It's like $6 at Kmart. You could go to online at Woodcraft or go to the store or something and buy a router mat. But generally they're about a third the size and 50% more in cost. So just buy the yoga mat. It's the same exact thing. It just costs less. So this is good. So my area is set up very nicely, and I'm ready to make my detail. But first I'll talk a little bit about our routers and router bits. So this is obviously our favorite machine in the shop. This Makita 3 1/4 horsepower plunge router, the round base. I'm going to show you a few other routers here. This one will do everything that the other ones will do. Some of the little trim routers are handier in that they're tiny, the size is smaller and a little easier to maneuver. But this guy will do everything. So if you only want to have one router, a 3 1/4 horsepower plunge router is really the way to go, because there's no limitations to what you can do. So we've got various different types of bits here, different kind of molding bits, and these bits are bearing bits. So it's different than these straight cutters we've been using to make our mortises. Profile in here. And the way you can sort of envision the profile, it's just the negative of the space. It's just going to cut that part of the wood out. Sometimes it's hard to see. So I encourage you guys when you're ready to start, if you're gonna you don't have to put a molding detail on here. It looks very nice if you just ease the edges and keep it square. But one thing you want to do is take your time and experimenting with some different router bits. Make yourself a decent size, a scrap piece of wood. If you guys have anything left over, somebody will have something left over. We'll find something where you guys can practice on. And what you can do is take a few passes and just to see what it looks like, because it's hard to really tell just by looking at the bit what it's actually going to come out as. I'd never just go into a tabletop blind and hope I like it. unless I knew what my results were going to be. So this one has a bearing on the bottom, which is going to ride over here. Cut out my detail. This is a different type of bit, bearing on the top. So this is more for like plunging in, doing template kind of work where I'm riding against an edge. I'll talk about that in a bit. And like this one has a bearing as well. But this is a rabbiting bit. This is for cutting a joint in here. This is not something you'd want to have on your tabletop. It might be. There's so many different means to an end in woodworking that you have some idea. You want to make a little notch in here, but this is like for making a little recessed notch in here to accept something else. And that's good. So I'll jump right in here on our details. So the first thing you want to think of is pick out a bit. I'm just going to use this cove bit here. It's just to give me a simple little sweep out in here, and you want to decide whether you want to put that on the top or the bottom of your tabletop in terms of if I put this on the top, I'm going to have this cove sweep out and down, but if I put it on the bottom, it's going to sweep up, so it'll have that kind of idea. You'll see what I'm talking about in a bit. So I've got this problem here on my board, and I'm just going to put my profile on the bottom so it sweeps up to the top, just so I can try to eliminate this little wane in my glue joint. So I'm going to set this up over here. The good thing about using one of these mats is if I've got a substantial enough piece of wood like this tabletop, I don't have to clamp it down to my tabletop. The mat will give it enough stickiness and tackiness that it's not going to move around. If I just use the cable, that wouldn't be so cool because see how easy it would slide, and that'll just end up screwing up your cut. So always, when I'm doing a molding detail or any kind of rattering on an edge like this, I'm going to start with my end grain first. And the reason, we'll talk about that a little bit, is we have a problem when we're doing a router profile on our edge, in that we have grain tear out, is what we call it. So, like over here, I'll have a tendency, if I come routering across this side, this grain right here, will have a tendency to chunk out, and I'll have a big split of wood. Sometimes it's worse than others. Sometimes you can just cut that away after it does it. But we just try to. There's several ways we try to avoid that just right off the bat. So if you can imagine this grain, it's all connected. It's all running this way in the long grain. It's all connected to one another. So if I'm going to dig in there and grab something, it's a good chance it'll go down here and want to bring its friends along with it and have this big chunk out. So I'll show you how to avoid that. So on the end grain, how I'm going to avoid that first is I'm going to come around this corner, and then I'm just going to nibble away at this long grain here that I would, if it was still there, would catch on my way out. So as my router bit is spinning this way, see the cutter is coming in like this. What I want to avoid is it scooping in here and tearing that grain so it breaks out. So I'll show you what I mean. But first off, I want to set the depth of my bit here. And the way I do that is I just stare down the shoe of the router, this part here. And I'll get this to a place where I want it. I'm going to take the full profile of this bit. You can see what I'm talking about. You stare down there. So I just lock that in place with this lock. And then I have my depth stop over here. Now I'll just press this button here, and that will allow me to push it down. Get it right to where I want it to be. So that's good.